All right, let us jump in. Paul, welcome to the podcast. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Molly. Thank you. Looking forward to a fun conversation.
Yes, me too. You are the first guest we've ever had on here to really dive into the world of IT and cybersecurity. So I'm pumped for this conversation. And I know for us, it's long overdue, but this is your world. I'm
Right.
excited to
No
hear about
pressure.
it. No pressure, no pressure. For those folks who are listeners who don't have the pleasure of knowing you, can you just give us a quick who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Absolutely. So my name is Paul Grenci. I'm a co-founder and current president of Red Key Solutions. We're based out of Westchester County, New York, but we're a national organization. We take care of folks on both coasts, down to Florida and all the way up north. What we do is we provide managed IT for companies. Quick translation, that means that we handle everything from your help desk to your strategy to your cybersecurity, which is going to be the focus of our conversation here today. Most companies as small as 5 are at risk for these types of things. So our smallest clients are about 5 to 6 people, and they go upwards of 100. And we do have a pretty strong focus in the construction and related fields.
And we're definitely going to dive into the fact that you just said as low as 5 or 6 people are at risk. And I think that's something that a lot of us don't necessarily understand. We think we're a small business, we're untouchable in the sense that we're not on the radar of potential hackers or whatever it may be. So we'll dive into that a little bit. So I love the fact that you work within the trades industry, construction. Obviously, we have a shared kind of listenership and client base there. I also love how I was introduced to you. My initial introduction to you was from Lisa De Maria, who I spoke to at Utopia Solutions. She and I did a podcast. Lisa comes to me through a referral from Tompkins Excavating, who is a client of ours. So it's just this really lovely small business network, kind of connection points in all different functions, which is great. So I appreciate being able to connect with you through all of those channels.
Me too. That's a good story.
It is. It is a great story. Okay, all right. So let's start with this hard truth and something you just kind of previewed a little bit. Businesses as small as those 5 to 6 people, but small businesses in general, how vulnerable are we actually to cyber attacks or this lack of cybersecurity that we don't have?
Okay. Yeah. So what's interesting about that is anyone that's been in business for a long enough time, this idea that you're too small to get in trouble
Yeah.
is pretty pervasive. And that's because when hackers first started doing what they did, they would research and find these big companies that were big ticket companies with lots of assets to steal or potential money to, hold them hostage for, right? And
Hmm.
then somewhere within the last 5 to 7 years, the entire process that hackers use to identify targets has been automated.
Like a lot of businesses have been automated.
Okay, right. So that's
Yeah.
they're businesses, they're just not legitimate businesses.
There
Let's
you
talk
go.
about it like that. So
Yeah.
what's happening is they're just going out there and they're buying these little packets that are going to scan all your websites, all your internet connections, and they're going to find little holes. And if you set it up yourself or your cousin did and you're out there running a construction firm or a painting company, you're not paying attention to any of that stuff. You don't know if it's set
Yeah.
up properly. You don't know what holes are present. You don't know if the firmwares are up to date or properly patched. So that
It's a little
leaves you really
terrifying.
exposed.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying.
Honestly, it is. And
Yeah.
the flip side of that is as it's gotten easier to do the hacking side,
Hmm.
you've got smaller and smaller players on the hacker side. This could be, a person in Eastern Europe and, you're thinking, I'm a $500,000 a year construction company, right? What are they
Yeah.
going to go after me for? They're thinking $500,000 a year company, like, oh, I'm coming for you guys and I'm going to intercept the biggest payment that you're getting from your best client. And I'm going to change the wire information and you're not going to get the money.
So let's talk about that a little bit. But what are the most common ways that small businesses are targeted?
That might honestly be it. And the reason it's so easy for them to do is because a lot of folks do wire transfers in these businesses. This is just
Hmm.
how people pay each other. A lot of the vendors are smaller vendors, so they're not going to have more sophisticated firewall protections, email training, cybersecurity, and they're not even going to have what we would have in our business, we call them change protocols. When you're in finance and somebody says, "Hey, I'd like to change my bank account," that's a big deal. You don't just go, "Oh yeah, no problem. I'll send it to that." No, time out. Back
Yeah.
up. Pick up the phone, jump the channel, get out of that email channel and say, "Hey, Mike, did you really want me to change that? And Mike's going to be like, what are you talking about?
So
Okay.
you're
So
saying question everything.
well, you should. And there should be
Yeah.
certain things like bank account changes, that flag your attention and cause you to go outside of that chain of communication to validate whether or not that's going on. So it's so easy to do because nowadays what happens is they'll fish for somebody's email information. A fish is just where it's a fake login. You think you're logging into Office 365, but you're not. They capture your information. And if you don't have multi-factor authentication, which is something we can dive into a little bit if you want, that means they can log into your account. And here's the scary part, Molly, and I am not supposed to be a fear monger here, but what they do is the average number of days that a bad actor is inside of an organization just watching is more than 70, 70, more than 2 months. And what are they doing? They're understanding where your big projects are. They're understanding which of your team members are going on vacation and when. They understand which vendors are paying you or you're paying, and they're going to go trickle into those. They're going to try and compromise those. And in
So it's
person,
like a spider web that starts just to be able to, with one hole being found, you can really create a spider web of a ton of issues.
yes, it's
Of
totally true.
opportunity for them.
It is. And
Yeah.
what happens to us, like, most of our clients, we're proactive enough to know when something suspicious has occurred. A login from Romania. You got somebody working in Romania right now because your email attendant just got logged in from there.
Yeah.
So we have ways, the benefit of working with any IT companies that's capable of assisting. And I recommend everybody find somebody that they trust that can do that. But when that's what's going on, and they go in and they'll write rules that will hide their presence. So when they actively start changing things in your environment, like telling one of your vendors to send something, they're going to auto delete all of those communications because your vendor is going to be like, wait, what? And they're going to be like, well, no, it's cool. I'm okay with this, is real. And there will be no trace. And we see this. We come in to clean these messes up, and there's all these hidden rules that hide their behavior. So
where are they hiding the hidden rules? Is it like in the internal operating system?
Your email. Right, like
email.
you can have an auto forward or an auto delete, for example, and they don't want you to see that these communications are going on. The two of you are using your email at the same time.
Okay, we said we didn't want to scare people here, but this is the reality of the situation. It's why we're having a podcast. And it's also because I have continued to see this question pop up amongst our clients. And the reality is it's not given enough attention in the small business space. So I think the fact that you are giving us the reality, sometimes we've got to scare people to make them realize that they got to make change, right?
You have a lot to protect.
Yeah.
Think about, even if you don't feel like you're a big organization, think about how hard you work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not about the dollars. It's about how much of yourself you've poured into this organization and how much you probably care, about your people, yourself, your reputation, your clients, your work, all of that. This gets in the way. The really sad news here is that when a company gets really hit by a cyber event, it could be an extortion, it could be a very large wire transfer that you need to make payroll and pay your vendors. Unfortunately, somewhere above 60% of the companies that experience this kind of a cyber event fold within 6 months.
60% fold within 6 months. That's crazy.
That's crazy. So the risk is really high if this occurs, that you're going to have some trouble.
So the cost is beyond financial. The cost is your operations, the cost is your reputation, the cost
It could be the entire business.
Yeah. I hate, to compare things, but it's almost like safety. We talk a lot about safety here on the podcast, a lot within our client organizations, how, it's almost like cybersecurity in a sense. We hear bits and pieces, we know it has a place, we know we should be doing certain things, but we don't always give it the attention it deserves. And it's when something happens that almost can cut the legs out of the business. That's when it becomes the reality of, we actually needed to be giving this way more attention than it deserved.
Right.
And this is the same situation.
It really is, and look, there's a lot of way that you can learn things. Some people need to experience something before they make an adjustment.
Yeah.
And this is pretty risky. In this particular arena, I suggest that people reach into that wisdom space and learn from somebody else's experience. You don't need to be on the front line of a cyber event.
Are you able to share a story, obviously without naming names or like a direct situation, a comparable business that, you and I would both work with, small business in the construction or trade space that had an attack or an incident of a nature that kind of changed course for the business going forward?
Ooh, let's see. Somebody that actually had, well, I actually do.
Maybe they came to you after the fact because they didn't have one now.
That's actually where I was going to go with that. So we
Yeah.
got called in after an event occurred. So they didn't have the proper relationship in place. They
Mhm.
weren't treating cybersecurity as an investment to protect their organization, their assets, and everything.
Mhm.
And they were 3 or 4 days into a hostage situation where they had crypto locked their entire environment. And they were trying to extort somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 to release everything. And they were lost. Their their IT person pretty much gave up, and they
Mhm.
reached out to us, and they tried to bring us in, and we realized what was going on. So we happened to be able to, in this particular instance, we were able to find and assemble an offline backup. It was a little out of date.
Mhm.
Okay, so they suffered, but it wasn't catastrophic, right? It
Okay.
was only a couple of weeks back, which, don't get me wrong, most of you your people are probably hearing this and going, "Oh my God, they had to redo a couple weeks."
Weeks. Yeah.
It's better than not having anything, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah.
got them back up and running. It was a painful couple of weeks. A lot of manual work had to be done to get things back in front. And they probably lost the trust of a couple of their clients and
Mhm.
had to deal with that. And we were able to help. And then they kept us around for many years after that. And that's the part. It's not a checkbox. You don't just do something once, put in a firewall and go, "Yay, we're done."
Yeah.
That's not how it works. I mean, you got to recognize companies that do what I do, right? A managed service provider. We have a lot of client businesses underneath us. From a hacker point of view, that puts a big target right on us, Red Key Solutions, and anyone else that's doing it. So
Yeah.
we have to be way up. We have to be way above that curve. So we're checking tons of things that are well above what you would have to worry about because we're
Yeah.
such a target. And what that
Right.
means is that we've got a lot of visibility into how fast this is moving and changing and evolving. And we know what it takes to protect a single small company because we've got almost 100 under management.
Right.
We're crowdsourcing all of these attempts, these attacks, the vectors, the phishing emails, all of that. So we really know what's coming at the small business owner.
Of all of the things that you guys do at Red Key, and I know when you and I first connected, that help desk is like a number one area. But after the help desk, is it cybersecurity where you spend a lot of is it from a service perspective, or does that just kind of fall in line with the larger kind of IT management services?
Well, that's actually a really good question. So, in almost in any business, prioritization is key, right?
Yeah.
You have a limited budget, you have a limited time, you have limited resources, bandwidth, focus, all of that. So, what we typically do is, as you said, help desk is the most common, most transactional place that we
Hmm.
work with our clients. Oh my God, I lost an email, forgot my password. Where's that backup? That's the day to day. So,
Yep.
where does cybersecurity start to weave in? Assuming an event hasn't occurred that's raising the priority and the seriousness of what we're talking about, we have regular strategy level conversation with our clients and we track their entire infrastructure with the intent on eliminating all the blind spots across your environment. Even
Okay.
small companies are complicated now. You've got
Yeah.
Office 365, you've got multiple locations, you've got all sorts of different devices. You've got a line of business app over here, you've got something else in Dropbox over there. Who's using what computer to access what when, right?
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. So once you start to draw a picture of that and get a nice sense of what that looks like, then you can start to prioritize where your company's going, where your industry is going, how you want to mature, what parts of your business are least mature that you need to prioritize. So by
Hmm.
going through this exercise, we align your long-term strategy with your security risks and your infrastructure places that need to be upgraded. And from there, you can start to make fairly confident small steps one at a time And to really dial in on what you're saying, project services like professional services work,
Mhm.
installations, upgrades, new systems that are going to tighten you up, that's usually where cybersecurity begins, is with
Got
those
it.
Let's look at multi-factor authentication, for example.
Yeah.
Probably one of the simplest takeaways from this call today is that your clients' emails and bank accounts should all be protected with multi-factor authentication access.
So when
Love
we
to
get
talk about
told
that
by
more.
certain platforms to turn that on, we should not hit the skip now button. We should
Right.
fill it out in the moment.
Yeah, really. And
Yeah.
maybe the second most important thing that your folks should be doing, use a password manager.
Yeah.
I
Do you have a
know
favorite?
I do. Personally, I use 1Password. It's shareable, it's manageable, it's paid as a service. They haven't been hacked as often as some of the other,
Yeah.
password management companies. And it gets to the point, there's always a big conversation, especially from, owners, founders, CEOs, presidents. Well, it gets in my way. It slows me down. That security gets
Mm.
in my way. And there might be a learning curve here and there in a couple of places, but once you've got that learning curve, you're not going to be bothered by the MFA. It's going to pop up on your phone. You're going to be like, good, I now know that this is working and
Yep.
I know that I just got in safely. That makes me feel good when I see that. I'm not like, oh man, I have to MFA. I'm like, no, I want to make sure that
Yeah.
MFA is working, so you kind of flip the script on that a little bit. And you say, I want to make sure my infrastructure is protected. Let's see what happens when I log in this morning. Because it's the first time it doesn't, you got to be like, wait a minute, what just happened? Why is that not
Right.
enabled?
That should raise the flag. That should be,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Molly, it's a mindset change where you're constantly thinking, am I protected? How do I verify that I'm protected?
Mhm.
And when you get there, you're no longer bothered so much by what it is that you're doing because you're thinking, I'm proving that my environment is secure.
But we'd rather be dealing, be slowed down 30 seconds and dealing with the MFA,
Less.
which I'm
Yeah,
going to
even
call it that
less.
now. Never called it MFA. I'm going to join your lingo.
Oh, I
um,
apologize right now for that.
no,
IT,
no.
too many
Well,
acronyms.
we're going to embrace the IT lingo, while we're here.
All right.
But embracing that 30-second, barrier now could prevent you from a 3-day, $15,000 hostage situation down the line.
I mean, they were down for 3 days hard. It took them weeks to get that, the invoicing back on track and the projects. They lost
Yeah.
so much.
Anybody who's listening to this, any one of our clients who like can put themselves in that scenario, I'm sure can feel some rumblings of anxiety thinking
Yeah,
about that in their own world. So let's
yeah.
say someone is listening to this, a business owner, an operations manager, anybody who within a company realizes we don't really have a cybersecurity protocol in place. We don't really have strategy. We maybe have a password manager here,
Mm,
MFA turned on a couple programs,
right.
but where do you start? Like, is the first step kind of assessing, your potential need and then reaching out to an IT company? Where do you begin?
That's a good question. Because trust is probably the single most important indicator of how good a relationship is going to be between a company and an IT firm.
Yeah.
I recommend talking to somebody that you're a peer with, maybe somebody within your chain of doing business, and say, somebody that like, do you like your IT company? Do they do a good job for you? And
Mm.
start there. Start with somebody that's got a trust-based referral because the hardest part of IT in general is the trust factor. And
Yeah.
whether or not you think what you're paying for is what you're getting, and that is also what you need, right? And if there's not a lot of confidence there, what happens is people end up seeing it as an expense. They want to
Yeah.
reduce they're not thinking about what it's going to do for them. They're thinking, how do I avoid paying a lot for this? And
Mhm.
that's going to lead to an untrustworthy relationship and
It
could go
becomes
wrong.
truly transactional. There is no
Exactly.
relationship.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And you're not going to get what you need. And you're
Yeah.
going to find out, you're going to be that person who learns firsthand instead of that person who learns by somebody else's experience.
So yes, that referral connection, that trust is big. How would you say, how does someone measure that trust? Or how do I come to Red Key Solutions or any other IT company and kind of know that you guys have the right systems in place, that you guys know what you're doing, that you are an IT organization that I can trust?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And look, I'm a consumer of services from other vendors, right?
Yep.
So what do I do as someone whose business turns on trust? What do I do to solve that problem? And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, because you look for public reviews. That's a very important thing, whether they're Google or Clutch or any other industry specific place. You want to see unfettered, unaltered, real, customer reviews. You're going
Mhm.
to get a vibe from that. If that number is 3.9, you're going to be like, okay, that's it's out of 5, right? 3.9 out of
Yep.
5. You're like, okay, they're not top 80%, top 20%. That's okay. Maybe they're a mid-range provider and there's 10 reviews. That's not great. Oh, there's 300 reviews, right? So I'm going to use my
Yeah,
reviews to determine what kind of crowdsourced feedback they're getting. And then I'm going to look at how long they've been in business.
that
If they've only
matters.
been in business for 3 years, I don't know what they were doing before that. They
Yeah.
could have been a baker. You know what I mean? Like, no, really, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for us, right? For us, I mean, I've been doing IT since I got out of college back in 95, but I've
Mhm.
been doing Red Key Solutions since 2002 in the New York metro area. Highly competitive, highly
Yep.
fast paced, super challenging environment. If I wasn't doing something right, I wouldn't be here still, right? So that all starts to level it out, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
connect that with somebody now you've got a trifecta.
Very true.
It's very strong proof that that's going to be an organization that you can trust and benefit from the relation.
So the referral, the crowdsourced reviews, and then how long in business, right? Are kind of
All
some
really
three
big,
areas.
yep, really big components.
Let's talk about the human element of all of this, because obviously humans make mistakes, and a lot of the businesses that we work with involve a lot of team members who all have access to different things, and of course we can, think we're doing all that we can to be protecting the company from our own people sometimes, from mistakes that they might make. But how big of a role do your employees play in the success of a cyber strategy
Oh,
plan?
I like how you phrased that. The funny part is the number one driver for success in a cybersecurity effort is not the employees, it's the
Interesting.
CEO.
The CEO.
So let me
I love it.
demonstrate.
I love
Right?
it. Bring it on. It's
Let me
great.
demonstrate. So you've got a 17-person company, you put in some security awareness training, right? This is
Mhm.
where they send a fake phishing email to your account and they see who clicks on it. And then they put you in a training session afterwards, or once a month, they send you a training to stay on top of the threats, right?
Mhm.
The attitude coming down from the leadership team is this is not important for me to slow down and do. That is the message that everyone will embrace, and your company will not benefit from the security training. Now, the worst part of this is in this example, the human element is always the weakest link in your
Yeah.
security posture. Always. Somebody is using their phone. Honestly, mobile devices are the worst, and I know how
Yeah.
many people in this sector are working mobile most
Oh
of the
yeah.
time,
A lot.
right?
A lot.
So an extra warning here is because mobile changes what you see and it hides things to present it because the screen's a lot smaller. It's
Mhm.
way easier to get tricked by things that are not real, fake things that aren't exactly right. Oh, I was kind of expecting that, but let me click. Oh, you didn't realize it's a fake URL, like bad website. So mobile is a huge spot. And to dial it all the way back, it starts with the top. If the CEOs and the leadership team are not leading by example, both in what they do and what they say, it will not have the needed impact on your organization. Is it going to help? Of course. I don't mean to dissuade people from trying. You need to try these things and start to build up the tolerance and the acceptance and the understanding that people are the weakest link. Because once everyone understands that, now you start to critically think about something. When someone asks you to change that bank account, you're going to be like, that's a risk right there. I should call them.
Yeah. So we'd be training ourselves to be looking for the risks.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. And remembering that the number one vector point is human in
Right.
some way. So that, That's important in my book. I hope that kind of nails where you were looking to
No,
go.
it absolutely does. I mean, it speaks to a lot of what we also coach to here, just, from a business perspective. I mean, culture comes top down.
Yeah, it
The CEO, the leadership team, they are the ones that need to be creating the culture. If culture comes bottom up, that's also, that also raises flags. That means you're having, some subcultures that maybe aren't healthy to the organization.
right.
But
Right.
culture really needs to be top down, and culture, kind of connecting to another phrase. I'm not going to say this whole thing right, but there's a phrase that we love, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
So
Who
if
is that? Peter Drucker or something
Peter
like
Drucker,
that?
I think, and then it's like operations for lunch, and then like something else for dinner. I forget the full phrase. We have it in our
Right.
office on the wall. I should know this by heart by now, but that's how it all links. If your CEO and a leadership team are not embracing the culture of cybersecurity that this company needs, well,
Yeah.
then any business strategy that you might have in place could be eaten for breakfast by that culture that's not being actually lived and breathed.
Right. Right. So in his example, he's using it to say that culture is so much, it's going to eat everything else because it's so dominant, right? But it has the negative
Negative
effect.
effects.
Right. If culture is watering down
Yep.
something, it's
Yep.
going to do that. It will water it down and it will trickle all the way down to your interns. And they're
Yeah.
just gonna be like, it's not that important.
But I also, not to throw our own CEO under the bus, but Brian, I mean, you can look at it from, not only cybersecurity, but you can look at it from like other processes that you implement, and you're trying to get the full team to buy in on it. And, the
Mhm.
full team will buy in. Brian might still do something the old school way.
Oh,
And we're like, Brian, you got to get on board with what the whole team is doing. But that, I mean, that's just also, you get in the routine of things. But I say that just because it is so real. I mean, the reality of it is that it has to be fully embraced by all, but leadership especially.
that's absolutely the best way to say it.
So the human element here is the whole that we need to be. How do you get your people on board? Like, obviously, you mentioned you do trainings, you can do kind of risk assessments within your organization, but how do you get, or how long does it take? Have you seen for teams to really begin to look or notice risk factors that they maybe
Oh,
weren't seeing before?
that's a good question. I mean, it obviously depends on your starting point, right?
Yep.
How technical. Number one, how technical is your industry, and number two, how technical are your people and their personal lives, even. That affects where that whole conversation starts. I mean, I would say within a 12-month period, you can see a meaningful increase, no matter where you're starting. So it's not this, oh my God, it's going to take us years to get there. No, within 6 months, your team is going to start to show a higher level of awareness in the places that are going to be threats for your organization. And look, even a 10% improvement is worth its weight in gold. You know what
It
I
is.
mean? Like, really, if you
Mm-hmm.
just took 1 out of 10 chances away that you're going to get hacked, right on, keep going. You're going in the right direction. So I wouldn't let the timeline, the complexity, the cost, any of that dissuade you from protecting what you're operating. It's too important.
If someone is trying, they maybe don't have the financial resources to invest in an IT company just yet. They know that that's, next year we're gonna add it into the budget. And I want to talk about how do we look at that from a budgeting perspective, just, IT support and resources in general. But from a cybersecurity perspective, if someone is listening to this and saying, okay, I need to just kind of get a hold of my house right now, what can I do? It's the multi-factor authentication. It's the password manager. Is
Mhm.
there one more thing that you would say make sure you're thinking about?
What would be the next most useful thing? Because those two right there, that's without a doubt one
Okay.
of those are the two most important things for sure. I'm trying to, like, I've got a lot of things going through my mind, right? Like cyber
Mhm.
insurance is something that we can talk about, but this isn't the right time to talk about cyber insurance, the scenario that you just laid out.
Okay.
I think I would spend a little time to make sure that my backup are where they need to be.
Okay.
Okay, because that's something that anybody can kind of do. I'm oversimplifying, right? But we're trying to talk about somebody that's maybe, a low maturity business, not that old. It doesn't have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
revenue. You're getting a lot done with a lot of hats on everybody's head, right?
Yep.
This is something that you can kind of take under your own wing. Make sure you've got a spot where your important stuff is being backed up, and
Yeah.
make sure that you've thought about how long you can be down for, because that tells
Oh.
you how frequently you should be backing up, right? If you can't be
Mhm.
down for more than an hour, you now know how rapidly you need to be backing up. Okay. okay? If you can be down for a day, okay, you can
Yeah.
take a day backup and you can be down for a day. So if you lose an entire day, your team's going to re-enter 8 hours worth of work. And you've told me as your IT company that that's cool.
Yep.
So I have these conversations all the time with our clients. There's two concepts, RTO and RPO. See, I warned you, we were going to get into way too many acronyms. But that
Explain
stands
these,
for
please. Yeah.
return point time, return point objective, and return time objective. So how much data are you willing to re-enter? That's your return point. And how long in total are you okay being down? So that's the total amount of duration that your team is in recovery mode versus doing regular business.
Okay.
Okay. So everybody that does have an IT company that's listening to this, they should take that back and go to their IT firm and say, hey, I would like to talk about this because I'm not sure that what you're backing up right now meets my business need.
Oh, it's such a good point. I love that. Yeah, bring that back to who you're working
Bring
with.
it back, take it back,
Yeah.
kick the tires.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure that you're on the same page and also what you're paying for and what they're giving is actually what your business is going to need should
What
something
you're
happen.
going to need. You
Yeah.
said the key part. So look, this is not an argument about how much it costs or any of that.
Yeah.
The business will tell you what you need to do. And that's the end of the conversation. Now you can find different ways to back it up, right? But the business is going to tell you, your clients are going to tell you, your staff, and the size of your organization is going to tell you what this needs to look like.
Super interesting. What are your thoughts on, and I know I'm probably teeing this up for a great response. What are your thoughts on businesses where they're using multiple platforms, but they're sharing logins on?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that exists.
That's a softball, right? That's a meatball right there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, outside of the licensing challenges, and I'm not going to go, look, I ran a company where, we did that at one point. You get as much out of it as you can.
Yep.
You use multiple people with multiple licenses. The security risk goes through the roof. It just goes through the roof because it's very challenging to properly use multi-factor authentication on a shared account. By definition, it's supposed to tie to a single person so you can approve it.
Yeah.
If you've got a group using imagine you lock an account down with a multi-factor authentication and there's 7 people that are on this list. You're approving it all day long. You're like, maybe that was Mike. Was that Sally? I don't know. Roger did it.
Yep.
Except this time it was somebody in China.
Right.
And you all got so desensitized because it was being used improperly. So yeah, I get it, right? I understand why companies do this. As soon as you can afford to not do that, I recommend not doing that. Because it's just too easy. It's such a blind spot. I'd hate to see the setback that would cause.
I knew it was going to be a softball when I teed that up because I know it is a shared challenge across. I mean, we're all trying to be as efficient as we can, and depending upon the programs you're using, yes, licenses can get very expensive.
Very expensive. I mean,
yeah.
Look, in my business, I mean, I'm a 17-person organization and I probably spend over $1 million a year on my tool set.
Wow.
What I need to do, my cost of doing business to provide my services to my clients, roughly $1 million.
Yeah. Well, that tees me up to another great question, kind of a little bit larger picture. So if we're, if cybersecurity, is an entry point here to think about the larger IT infrastructure needs, how should small business owners think about budgeting for IT infrastructure or IT support, on their P&L? If they're thinking about next year, do you have a benchmarks for like what percentage of revenue you see companies spending or how to approach it? So
the bigger companies like to talk about percentage of revenue, but that's really, it's not really an appropriate way to talk about it. Some of the different industries that you might be dealing with, because it moves around based on company size, industry, level of maturity. It's not a great metric. They try, but it's not a great metric. So I'm going to give you some on the ground numbers. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So here we're in the New York metro area. That means that our prices might be a little bit higher in this general geography, but I think it'll translate around and people can self-adjust. So on the low end, first of all, we're an unlimited on-site and remote support agreement. What does that mean? We charge per user per month, a fixed fee, and then we provide that in a limited sense. Now,
do you define users as an employee just for?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. We have 2 levels of users. We have full users, and that would be your office team, your admins, people that are using the full suite of applications that you need to run your business. And then very specifically in this sector that we're talking talking to right now, there's a classification called the secondary user. Now, those
Okay.
secondary users, we obviously don't charge the same amount, which I'll get to numbers in a moment,
Mhm.
but it's typically about half price. But because they have a very restricted set of exposure, meaning they might be using email and one, maybe two applications on an iPad. That's it. They're out in the field most of the time, right? They're just submitting their time or taking photos. So that's how we choose to break it up so that
Okay.
we can right
Makes
size,
sense.
right? We can right
Yeah.
size the spend that our clients are doing. Because look, we never want our clients to spend money where it doesn't make sense because there's too many important places that
Yeah.
you need to spend that money, right? So we're
Mhm.
very, very conscious of that. Any good IT company would be. Okay,
Mhm.
let's take that step back now. So on the low end, so not for profit, really smaller organizations or highly simple organizations, we could charge as low as $125 to $150 per user per month for
Okay.
unlimited support.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the low end. So now you start to tick up as you get more complicated, larger, more sophisticated. If you've got compliance issues like healthcare, Department of Defense, fintech, all of that sort of stuff, it starts to go up, right? So our average around here is probably 150 to 175 is
Okay.
kind of like a sweet spot. And this is a very mature IT organization. So if
Yeah.
you're working with a smaller organization, you can expect that price to be a little bit better
Okay.
because they're not carrying $1 million worth of tools to get the jobs. So
Right.
it's all
Yeah.
relative. And of course, we've got more experience, we've got more depth, we've got more people, but there's nothing wrong with a smaller organization. This
Yeah.
gives you at least an idea of what you're spending, right? And then those bigger clients with the compliance, they get above $200 a user easily.
Okay. Which it's so interesting because when I was talking to Lisa, one of the biggest, challenges that I asked her about, in the small business space in HR, it was compliance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a real challenge for small businesses to kind of stay up to date on all. So, if you're seeing an issue kind of across multiple functions, compliance being that problem, it's something to be aware of. And how are you putting enough investment into those tools that are going to help you protect yourself
Yeah.
and be compliant across the
Yeah,
board?
no, we're not done yet on the budgeting side of things because what I
Okay.
just described to you is probably about 60%, 60,
Okay.
of what a company's actually going to need to spend. So, Paul, what's the rest of it?
What's the rest of it, Paul?
Right? Project services, upgrade, installations of things that you don't have that you need, right? So if you're going to measure a calendar year, that agreement cost that you and I just talked about, that per user per month, that's roughly 60% of your spend. The
Okay.
rest of it is going to be hardware that you need to upgrade, right? Because
Yep.
you go past year 4 on that computer and it's going to go down hard somewhere in year 5. And somebody's going to lose a day and it's going to be messy. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you it's going to be the worst possible day you can think of. That's just welcome to Murphy's Law in IT. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you need to know that there's more on top of that spend, right? So you've got your projects, got your hardware, and then you've got your licensing, Dropbox, Office 365, Adobe, Bluebeam, right? All the different things that you need. All of this is hitting your IT spend.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you kind of separated those two out
Right.
because it does. It makes a lot of sense. A question that just popped up because when I think about, and this more comes into hardware and devices, how do you fall, in line between the types of devices that you guys like to use internally? Do you fall more on the Mac Apple side or do you fall more on like the HP Dell Windows side from a security standpoint?
All right. Well, now the modifier at the
The
end actually
security
changed
standpoint,
it.
because everyone can have
Yeah.
preferences, but I'm more so interested about like protecting your system.
Yeah. So from a security point of view, Macs are actually quite good. In fact, out of the gate, off the shelf, out of the box,
Yeah.
their philosophy about security is almost annoying to companies like myself who are
Interesting.
trying to properly manage them smoothly with a nice
Yeah.
client experience because they get in our way a lot.
Mm,
I like to joke. I say it's really hard to make IT look easy. So if you're working with an IT company that makes it look and feel like it's really easy, stay with them because
okay.
they're doing a good job. If
Yeah.
you get that feeling that they're just on top of things and your life is easy, you're in a good spot. Let me
Okay.
tell you.
Okay.
So where was I going with that?
Macs versus the
Yes.
Dell, HP, the
The
Microsoft
Dell,
of
the
the world.
Mac versus the PC. So from a
Yeah.
security point of view, Macs are quite good out of the gate. From a
Okay.
scalability and a productivity point of view, they're not quite where we like to be. So what does that mean? I'd say about 85% of our fleet of managed computers, and we're upwards of 1,500 right now, is probably going to be PC. And that other
Interesting.
15 to 20% is going to be Mac. We're a best in class type organization, which means me personally, I have an iPad, I have an iPhone, and I have multiple PCs. I have a laptop PC and 2 desktop PCs.
Okay.
Okay. And that's because I'm best in class.
Yeah.
iPads and iPhones are great mobile devices. Apple makes amazing devices. I'm not going to
Yep.
argue that.
Yep.
But for what I need to do, PCs take that step forward. And I'm
Interesting.
okay with that too. So as an organization, we support all of it.
Okay.
We have to support all of it, and we treat it all, we try and support it equally, even though they are not equal on the back end. It's very difficult for us to do some things on the
Yeah.
Mac, do on the PC, but we do treat them the same.
Okay. That popped up as we were kind of talking about you mentioned hardware, and it's just always like a debate in the office, and sometimes in terms of, certain, I should knock on wood as I'm saying this, but I have a Mac. Most of my colleagues have PCs, but I should not say this out loud to the universe, but I don't run into a whole lot of security problems on my computer, but I just said it and hopefully I don't regret it. But I run into less roadblocks than I would say sometimes I see others with PCs, but that also does make sense from an operational standpoint, that the PCs might be better for kind of scalability opportunity. So but you're right. Find what's best in class for what you need. Paul, this was fantastic. I could go on for another hour and ask you questions.
We could do another session sometime.
We
if you want.
should do another one. Yeah, because this is such a great topic. And I hope this has been interesting for our listeners. If folks want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to learn about you or connect with Red Key Solutions?
Well, Red Key Solutions has a nice up-to-date website, redkeysolutions.com. Easy to get to. You can request a proposal right on the top. We've also got a bunch of live reviews. Remember how I talked about reviews?
Yes, yes.
We publish our internal reviews. We customer satisfaction, make sure we're doing a good job all the time. And we put all those up so people can see, because I understand what builds trust, right?
Yes.
Longevity, good reviews, and testimonials, and all of that, and referrals. So we use that. We live and die by that, and that's what we do. That's what we put up there, and they can make a request. And I do a lot of business development, so you might hear from me.
I love it. There you go. This was really great. Thank you so much. I certainly hope to have you back again. I think you're a great resource for us and for Nolan Consulting Group clients, and so I'm really grateful to have made the connection. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. We appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing me on. It was an absolute pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation.
Until next time.
All right.